What if I told you that the most popular, most trusted, and often most expensive ingredient in your winter groundbait is probably the reason you're not catching fish? That's right. I'm talking about live bloodworms. For years, we've all been taught the same thing. Pile them in, the more the better. But today, we're going to expose why that might be the absolute worst thing you can do for your winter fishing. Stay tuned, because I promise that by the end of this video, you'll understand why your fishing neighbor with the simple, cheap setup is outfishing you, and it will completely change the way you prepare your bait. So let me ask you this right now, and be honest in the comments. Do you believe that a huge amount of live bloodworms in your ground bait is the key to success? Let's see if I can change your mind. Let's set the scene. It's a cold morning. You're out on the ice and the air is still. The tradition, the ritual is almost sacred. You mix your ground bait, and then comes the magic ingredient, a fresh portion of live, wiggling bloodworms. We've all seen it. We've all done it. It's a trick passed down from our fathers and grandfathers. The logic seems flawless. Fish love bloodworms, so giving them a lot of bloodworms should attract every fish in the area. It's become such a deep-rooted belief that questioning it feels like fishing heresy. We spend good money on these little red worms, convinced they are the silver bullet for slow winter bites. But this habit is based on a summer fishing mentality. And as we're about to find out, the rules are completely different when the water is just a few degrees above freezing. Let's start with the most common mistake: overfeeding. Picture this. You mix up a big, rich batch of ground bait, packed with hundreds of live bloodworms. You form a few heavy, dense balls and drop them right down your hole. In your mind, you've just opened an all-you-can-eat buffet. But think about the fish. In winter, their metabolism is incredibly slow. They are not actively hunting for a massive meal. They're conserving energy, looking for a quick, easy snack. When a school of perch or roach finds your giant pile of food, they don't go into a feeding frenzy. Instead, they leisurely peck away at the ground bait, eat their fill of the easily accessible worms, and then they're done. They become full and satisfied. A full fish has absolutely no reason to inspect that single, lonely bloodworm you have waiting on your hook just a few inches away. You've accidentally turned your fishing spot into a soup kitchen where the main course is free, making your actual offering completely redundant. Now for a transition, let's talk about the Great Escape. What happens to those lively bloodworms once your ground bait ball hits the bottom? You might imagine them wiggling around, creating an irresistible attraction. The reality is quite different. Bloodworms are natural burrowers. It's their primary survival instinct. The moment they are freed from the ground bait on the lake bed, they do what nature tells them to do. They dig. They will frantically burrow into the silt, mud, or even deeper into the ground bait ball itself to hide from predators. Within a shockingly short amount of time, maybe just 10 or 15 minutes, the vast majority of the live bait you so carefully added is now completely hidden from view. Your spot, which was supposed to be a beacon of live food, has effectively become a barren pile of scented mud. You paid for premium bait, but you've ended up just feeding the microorganisms in the lake bottom. The visual and physical stimulation you were counting on has literally vanished into thin air, or rather, vanished into the silt. So, let's think about the perspective of a fish approaching your spot 30 minutes after you've baited it. A curious roach drifts in, attracted by the lingering scent from your ground bait. It arrives at the location, but what does it see? It sees a pile of ground bait, but the promised feast of wiggling worms is gone. They've all burrowed away. The fish might poke around for a moment, but with no active moving food to hold its attention, its interest quickly wanes. It might swim right over your hook without even noticing it, because there's nothing there to create excitement or competition. This is the tragic irony. You added live bloodworms to keep fish in your spot, but their natural behavior is precisely what causes them to leave the spot. You created a powerful, short-term attraction that quickly fades into a disappointing and empty dinner table. This is why you often get a flurry of interest right after baiting, followed by complete silence. The party is over before it even really began. This leads to a crucial concept we need to understand: the difference between an active spot and a fed spot. When you dump a large amount of bait filled with live worms, you are creating a fed spot. You are giving the fish a full meal. An active spot is entirely different. An active spot is one where there is a constant suggestion of food, a scent, and just enough bait to create competition and excitement without actually filling the fish's bellies. Think of it like a teaser trailer for a movie versus the full movie. Your goal in winter fishing is not to show the fish the entire movie. You want to show them a tantalizing trailer that makes them desperately want more. The more in this scenario is your hook bait. A massive bait ball is the full movie. It satisfies their curiosity and they move on. Your strategy needs to shift from feeding them to teasing them into making a mistake. So if throwing in a pile of live worms is a mistake, what's the solution? It's simple and surprisingly effective, using inert bait. And by inert, I primarily mean crushed or dead bloodworms. I know it sounds counterintuitive. Why would you use dead bait when you can use live? Here's why. When you gently crush a small portion of bloodworms before adding them to your ground bait, you release all of their powerful scent and amino acids directly into the mix. You are creating a supercharged scent cloud. This scent cloud leaches out of your ground bait on the bottom, traveling through the water and attracting fish from a wide area. But here's the critical difference. When the fish arrive, there is no meal waiting for them. There are no live worms to dig in and eat. There's only the overwhelming smell of their favorite food. This creates a state of frustrated hunger. They are agitated, excited, and desperately searching for the source of that amazing smell. Let's visualize the scene with this new approach. You've dropped a smaller ground bait ball, this time infused with the scent of crushed bloodworms, not the live ones themselves. A big perch is drawn in by this potent aroma. It arrives at your spot. It senses on high alert, expecting a feast. It circles the ground bait, but finds nothing substantial to eat. It's getting more and more worked up. And then, what does it see? It sees one single, perfectly presented, gently twitching bloodworm on your hook. In its state of heightened agitation, and with no other food options available, that hook bait is the most irresistible thing in the world. It doesn't hesitate. It inhales it. You've used the ground bait not as a food source, but as an advertisement. You've created a problem, an intense desire for food, and your hook bait is the only solution you've offered. That is the art of winter baiting. Let's talk about the practical application. How do you actually do this? It's incredibly easy. Take the portion of bloodworms you intend to use in your ground bait, let's say about 50 grams. Don't just dump them in. Instead, place them in a small bait box or on a dedicated surface. Then, using your fingers or a small blunt object, gently press and roll them. You're not trying to turn them into a complete paste. You just want to break the skins on most of them. You'll see the rich red liquid start to come out. This is liquid gold. Now, add this mixture to your dry ground bait mix before you add water. This ensures that every particle of your ground bait becomes saturated with that powerful attractant. When you then add water and mix it, you're locking that scent in, ready to be slowly released on the bottom. It's a simple 2-minute step that can make the difference between a blank day and a full bucket. But what if you still want to use live bloodworms? Is there a place for them at all? Absolutely, but not in the ground bait. The best way to use live bloodworms is to feed them separately and in tiny, tiny quantities. I'm talking about a small pinch, maybe 5 or 6 individual worms, dropped straight down the hole every 10 to 15 minutes. This technique is often called little and often. Instead of a big buffet, you're providing occasional tiny snacks. This serves a completely different purpose. It's not meant to feed the fish. It's meant to create intense competition among them. When a few worms flutter down, any fish in the area will rush to grab them before another fish does. This competitive spirit makes them far more aggressive and much less cautious. They see something falling, they eat it. They don't have time to inspect it. And when your hook bait flutters down among them, they'll attack it with the same aggression. Now let's directly compare these two strategies side by side. On the left, we have Angler A. He's using the traditional method. He drops 2 large, bloodworm-packed balls of ground bait at the start of his session. He gets a few bites in the first 20 minutes as the fish pick off the easy worms. Then, for the next 3 hours, it's dead quiet. The worms have burrowed, the fish are full, and the spot is dead. On the right, we have Angler B. He starts with 1 small ball of ground bait containing only crushed worm scent. Then, every 15 minutes, he drops in a tiny pinch of 5 live worms. His spot is consistently active. The scent keeps fish in the area, and the regular small feedings create a constant state of competition. He is steadily catching fish throughout the day because his swim never dies. He is actively managing his spot, keeping it productive, while Angler A is just waiting and hoping. There's also a powerful psychological barrier we need to address. As fishermen, we are often conditioned to believe that more is better. A bigger lure, a heavier line, more bait. It feels generous and productive to pack our ground bait with live worms. It feels wrong, almost stingy, to use less bait or to use dead bait. Overcoming this mental block is half the battle. You have to trust the process. You have to understand that you are not there to benevolently feed the fish. You are there to outsmart them. Fishing, especially in the tough conditions of winter, is a game of deception and manipulation. Your bait is your tool for that deception. Using less, but using it more intelligently is a far more effective strategy than just thoughtlessly dumping in as much as you can afford. It requires a shift in mindset from being a provider to being a strategist. Let's consider the water conditions as well. In very cold, clear water, fish are naturally more suspicious. A huge, unnatural pile of ground bait on the bottom can actually be intimidating to them. It's something out of the ordinary. A smaller, more subtle presentation is often far more effective. The scent of the crushed bloodworms will travel, pulling fish in without creating a large, scary mountain on the lake bed. Furthermore, in clear water, you can often see the fish interact with your bait. If you have ever watched fish approach a large pile of ground bait, you'll notice they are often wary at first. They circle it, and only the smaller, bolder fish might dart in for a quick bite. The larger, wiser fish often hang back. The scent-only approach with small, regular feedings is much more subtle and appears more natural, which can be the key to tricking those bigger, more cautious specimens that we're all after. This principle applies across the board to our most common winter target species. Let's take perch, for example. Perch are predators, but in winter they can be very lethargic. A giant static pile of food doesn't always trigger their predatory instinct. However, the scent of crushed bloodworms will get them agitated, and the sight of a few lone worms fluttering down will trigger that competitive, aggressive response you need. Roach and bream are classic bottom feeders, and while they love bloodworms, they are also notorious for becoming preoccupied with ground bait. They will sit over a pile of bait and methodically suck every last particle out of it, completely ignoring a hook bait. By using the scent-based method, you attract them to the area but force them to search for the only satisfying food source, which is, of course, your bait on the hook. The strategy remains consistent: attract, frustrate, and then offer the solution. Let's talk about the economic side of things. Live bloodworms are not cheap, especially high-quality ones. Many anglers feel the need to use a large quantity, maybe a quarter or even half a liter in a single session. This can add up very quickly. By adopting this new strategy, you become far more efficient with your bait. You might only need 100 grams of bloodworms for an entire day's fishing. A small portion gets crushed for the ground bait, and the rest is used for that little and often feeding. You will save a significant amount of money over the course of a season. And the best part is, you will almost certainly catch more fish. It's a classic case of working smarter, not harder. Your wallet will thank you, and your catch rates will prove that it was the right decision. You're investing in a technique, not just throwing expensive worms into a hole in the ice. Here's another scenario to consider: fishing in a competition or on a highly pressured body of water. On these lakes, the fish have seen it all. They are educated. Every weekend, dozens of anglers are dropping the same kind of bloodworm-heavy groundbait into the water. The fish can become conditioned to this. Your unique approach, focusing on scent and minimal loose feed, can be the one thing that sets you apart. While everyone else is creating large, dormant feeding zones, you are creating a small, highly active, competitive zone. Your presentation will be different from the 20 other anglers around you. In the world of pressured fish, being different is a massive advantage. You are presenting the fish with a puzzle they haven't seen before, and that often leads to a confident bite when they would otherwise be wary. So what if you've already mixed your groundbait the old way and you're at the lake? Is the day ruined? Not necessarily. Here's a quick tip to salvage the situation. Don't make large, hard-packed balls. Instead, use your bait mix very sparingly. Mix it so it's a little bit wetter and more crumbly. Then, only introduce a tiny walnut-sized ball of it every half hour or so. This will reduce the amount of food you're introducing at any one time, minimizing the risk of overfeeding and preventing all your worms from burrowing at once. It's not the ideal solution, but it's a good way to adapt on the fly if you find yourself in this situation. The key principle is always to control the amount of food you are giving the fish. Never give them more than just enough to get them excited. This is damage control for a classic mistake. Let's re-examine the role of the groundbait itself. We need to stop thinking of it as fish food. In this system, the groundbait is simply a carrier vehicle. Its primary job is to deliver the scent payload to the bottom in an efficient way. The color, texture, and composition are all secondary to its ability to absorb and then slowly release the attractants from the crushed bloodworms. A fine, dark groundbait is often best, as it creates a subtle background that doesn't alarm the fish and helps your hook bait to stand out against it. Think of your groundbait as a stealth bomber and the scent as its payload. Its job is to get in, deliver the package, and create an effect without being too obvious. It's a delivery system, not the meal itself. This conceptual shift is fundamental to mastering modern winter baiting techniques. Now, let's address a common counter-argument. Someone might say, "But I've been doing this for 30 years and I always catch fish." And that may be true. You can certainly catch fish with a bloodworm-heavy mix, especially on days when the fish are very active and feeding aggressively. The method isn't a complete failure 100% of the time. However, the question is not, can it work sometimes? The question is it the most effective method? On the tough days, on the days with high pressure, when the fish are lethargic and bites are hard to come by, this old method is far more likely to fail you. The technique we've discussed today is designed for consistency. It is designed to give you the best possible chance of success on any given day, not just on the easy days. It's about maximizing your potential and turning those difficult blank sessions into successful ones. Imagine a conversation with that old-timer on the ice, the one who is pulling fish after fish while you sit there without a bite. You finally go over and ask him what his secret is. He might just wink and show you his bait box. You look inside, expecting some magical, expensive mix. Instead, you see a simple, dark ground bait and a tiny container with just a handful of bloodworms. He's not using a secret ingredient. He's using a secret strategy. He understood long ago that the game isn't about how much bait you can throw in the water, but how intelligently you can use it. He knows that creating competition is more important than creating a buffet. He's not just a fisherman, he's a fish psychologist. And that is the level of thinking that separates the consistently successful anglers from the ones who just get lucky every now and then. It's a lesson that is often learned the hard way, through many silent, fishless hours on the ice. This brings up the final crucial point: adaptability. There are no absolute, unbreakable rules in fishing. Perhaps on a specific lake, with a specific species, on a warm winter day, a more food-rich groundbait might work better. The key is to understand the principles we've discussed so you can make an informed decision on the bank. Start with the scent and compete strategy. Observe the results. If you feel the fish need more to hold them, you can slowly increase the amount of loose feed, but always start from a position of control and subtlety. It is always easier to add more bait to a spot than it is to take bait away. Once you have overfed your swim, it can be ruined for hours. Starting with a minimal approach gives you options and allows you to adapt to what the fish are telling you on that particular day. Don't be a one-trick pony, be a thinking angler. So, to wrap all of this up, the core idea is simple. Stop thinking about your ground bait as a meal. Your ground bait is an advertisement designed to create desire and frustration. The solution to that frustration should only be one thing: your hook bait. By crushing a portion of your bloodworms for scent and using the live ones sparingly to create competition, you transform your approach from one of brute force feeding to one of surgical precision and psychological warfare. You will use less bait, save money, and most importantly, you will put more fish on the ice, especially on those tough days when everyone else is complaining that the fish aren't biting. The truth is, the fish are almost always willing to bite something. You just have to give them the right reason, and a giant free buffet is rarely the right one. So, there you have it. The hard truth is that blindly adding handfuls of live bloodworms into your winter groundbait isn't just wasteful, it can be the very thing that's killing your catch rate. The real aha moment, the big twist, is realizing that your goal is to attract and excite, not to feed. The fish don't need a 3-course meal. They need a reason to compete, a reason to make a mistake. By shifting your strategy to a scent-based attraction using crushed worms and creating competition with tiny, regular feedings of live ones, you fundamentally change the dynamic under the ice from a passive buffet to an active hunting ground. This isn't just a small tip. It's a complete change in philosophy that can turn your toughest winter days into your most productive ones. Thank you so much for watching and for being willing to challenge the old ways with us. If this video gave you a new perspective, do me a huge favor and hit that like button. And make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss our next deep dive. And now for the big question. After hearing all this, are you going to change how you use bloodworms this winter, or are you sticking to the old school method? Let's get a real debate going in the comments below. See you on the ice!